The sermon was about sin, more specifically fidelity, the sanctity of vows, and the cost of betrayal. Father Marcus stood at the pulpit, his voice rich and commanding, every syllable soaked in moral certainty. He quoted Corinthians, then Proverbs. He talked about trust as a covenant, not a convenience. His voice echoed through the old wooden beams of St. Gabriel's Chapel, reverent and rhythmic like rain on stained glass. I sat 4 pews from the front, hands folded tight in my lap, knuckles pale from pressure. Not from the weight of the sermon, but from the woman beside me, Claire. Her blonde hair was pulled up into a loose bun, soft curls framing her face like she was some kind of angel. She wore a navy blue dress that clung to her hips just enough to make men glance and women grit their teeth. But it was her eyes, bright, distant, somewhere else entirely, that told the real story. She wasn't listening to Marcus. Not really. Her body was here in this chapel with me, but her mind? Her heart? They were already elsewhere. A few weeks ago, I might have chalked it up to stress. Claire had always been more spiritual than I was, devout in a quiet, graceful way. Church was her thing. A ritual. A refuge. Father Marcus was a man she'd spoken of often, praised even. He was wise, she said. Compassionate. Thoughtful. So imagine how twisted it felt now, sitting in God's house, as that same man preached about adultery with one hand holding the Bible, and the other, metaphorically, gripping my wife's hips. She reached into her purse halfway through the sermon, pretending to check a tissue or some other nonsense. But I saw her phone, saw the flash of a name on the screen. Marcus. It wasn't just the name that hit me, it was the emoji next to it. A heart. Red. Bold. Shameless. I don't know what snapped harder, the illusion or my self-respect. She tilted the screen away quickly, thinking I hadn't noticed. But it was too late. That flash of truth lit up everything in my mind. Every late-night walk she claimed helped her clear her head. Every time she'd smiled at a text and said it was just Susan from the prayer group. Every subtle shift, the colder kisses, the sudden uptick in volunteering, the perfume she never used to wear to church. It was all there. And now so was I, awake. When Marcus stepped down from the altar and began walking through the pews with his open-armed blessing, Claire looked at him with that kind of reverence people reserve for saints. He made eye contact with her, no more than a second, but enough. It was electric. Charged. Not with faith, but with familiarity. I could feel it pulsing between them. The air thickened around me, like God himself was choking on the hypocrisy. Claire reached for my hand. Reflexively. Out of habit, maybe. But the touch felt foreign, like a stranger brushing against me in a crowded elevator. I'll be staying after for choir meeting, she whispered sweetly. Of course she would. She always did. The closing hymn was a blur. I stood. I sang. I smiled. I was the perfect image of a devoted husband. No one could tell the difference. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't show up with fangs and claws. It comes dressed in Sunday best, with soft lips and softer lies. By the time we reached the car, I'd made up my mind. No confrontation. Not yet. Not in anger. Anger was a blunt weapon, and I wanted precision. That night, as she slept next to me, curled up like nothing was wrong, her phone lit up again on the nightstand. This time, I didn't pretend to look away. I reached over, picked it up, and read the message. Last night was heaven. I'm still thinking about how you tasted on my fingers. Until Thursday, behind the altar. I sat there, holding the phone like it might bite me. My heart didn't break, it calcified. Hardened. I didn't wake her. I didn't scream. I just laid back, eyes open, staring at the ceiling fan spinning like a halo turned sideways. That was the night I stopped being her husband and started being something else entirely. The church was quiet. Too quiet. It was a Tuesday evening, the kind of stillness where even your footsteps feel like confessions. I parked across the street from St. Gabriel's and killed the engine, the sound of the ticking motor slowly fading into the autumn wind. The last amber rays of sunlight filtered through the stained glass windows like God himself was watching and choosing not to interfere. Claire had left 20 minutes earlier, claiming she had an early choir rehearsal. She kissed me on the cheek on her way out, her lips lingering a second too long, like she was trying to sell the illusion. I didn't buy it. Not anymore. From the shadows across the street, I waited. Patient. Still. Not like a jealous husband, but like a hunter. And then I saw her. Claire emerged from the back entrance of the church, slipping around the side near the sacristy door. She moved differently when she thought she wasn't being watched, shoulders looser, hips swaying with just a touch more purpose. Her dress was shorter than she ever wore on Sundays. And beneath her coat? Lingerie. I caught a glimpse of lace when the wind caught the hem. She wasn't here to sing. Then he appeared. Father Marcus. No robe now. Just a black shirt, collar unbuttoned, sleeves rolled up like some kind of spiritual rebel. His hair was damp, as if he'd just showered, and he wore the smug, self-satisfied grin of a man who thought grace could cover guilt. Claire smiled when she saw him, lit up, like a woman seeing her lover, not her priest. They didn't speak. Words weren't needed. Their bodies knew the script. He pulled her close, and she melted against him. Her hands went in his chest. His mouth found hers. It wasn't soft or slow. It was hungry. I felt like a ghost watching my own marriage rot. They stumbled behind the altar, hidden from most eyes, but not mine. I stayed in the shadows, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I should have felt rage, but what I felt was clarity. This wasn't just betrayal. This was desecration. A man who'd heard my confessions. A woman who'd vowed before God to be mine. And now, under the vaulted ceilings of that holy place, they were indulging in the oldest sin, cloaked in the silence of sacred walls. She whispered something to him. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw the way she laughed after. The way she gripped his neck. The way he pressed her against the cold stone wall, his fingers sliding beneath her coat. They didn't make love. They fucked. That's what it was. Dirty. Desperate. A priest's mouth on a married woman's neck. Her moans swallowed by the thick, sacred air of the church. And I just watched. Not out of some twisted voyeurism, but because I needed to see it. Every filthy second of it. I needed to burn it into memory, not to forget, but to fuel what came next. When they were finished, she straightened her coat. He whispered something, and she kissed him again, slower this time. Intimate. Familiar. Then she left. Walked right past my car. She didn't notice me. She didn't sense the shift. Marcus stayed behind, probably to say a few words to absolve himself in an empty chapel. The irony made my stomach turn. But I didn't confront them. Not yet. I wasn't here for confrontation. I was here to begin. Because revenge isn't loud. It isn't messy. It's precise. Planned. And tonight was only the beginning. The church fundraiser was one of those events Claire used to love, half piety, half pageantry, all gossip. It took place in the gymnasium of the church school, decked out with paper lanterns, linen-covered tables, and trays of lukewarm hors d'oeuvres. I hadn't planned to go, but after Tuesday night, I needed to look him in the eye. I needed to see if Father Marcus could preach charity while wiping my wife's lipstick from his soul. I walked in like I owned the place, dressed clean, polite. Claire wasn't with me this time, said she was exhausted and needed to rest. Right. Rest from choir. Or from Marcus. It was Father Marcus I saw first, at the far end of the room, laughing with donors like he hadn't just defiled everything he stood for. He looked right through me. Not a flinch. Not even a blink of recognition. That was when I realized how deep his performance went. He wasn't just cheating with my wife. He was charming the whole damn town while doing it. I grabbed a drink. Cheap red wine, but it did the job. And then she appeared. At first, I didn't know who she was. Young, early 20s, maybe. Tall, fierce green eyes. A black leather jacket over a slinky burgundy dress that hugged every curve like it was sewn onto her body. Not church attire, and definitely not priest's daughter attire. But that's exactly what she was. Hey, she said, sliding up beside me at the drink table. You look like you'd rather be anywhere but here. I gave her a look. That obvious? She smirked. Very. Lily Marcus. She extended a hand. You. Derek. Her grip was confident. Firm. And her eyes lingered just a beat too long. There was something magnetic about her, this paradox of innocence and rebellion. Your Father Marcus's daughter? I asked. Unfortunately, she replied, rolling her eyes. But don't worry, I don't come with a halo. I laughed, unexpectedly. She laughed too. The kind of laugh that dances along the edge of something dangerous. We talked. About wine. About hypocrisy. About why she hated being dragged to events like this. Her laugh was dry and sharp, her voice low and self-assured. She was everything her father pretended to be except honest. She asked what brought me to the fundraiser. My wife, I said. She's very involved in the church. Ah, she said, eyeing me closely. And yet here you are, drinking alone, looking like you've got a storm bottled up behind your eyes. I didn't respond. But I didn't need to. Lily leaned in slightly, close enough that her perfume curled into my lungs. It smelled like vanilla, bourbon, and something darker underneath. Let me guess, something happened. Something big. And now you're trying not to explode in public. I looked at her, this girl who should have been off limits to anyone with sense. But I wasn't that man anymore. Not since the altar. Not since the kiss. Not since the thrust in the dark. She tilted her head. Want some advice, Derek? Sure. Don't waste your time being angry. Use it. Pain can build things. Walls, armor, fire. She clinked her wine glass against mine. Let it burn the right people. We stood there in silence for a moment, staring at each other. No words. Just awareness. Sexual tension isn't a spark. It's a slow, humming wire that snakes between two people, pulsing in every unspoken pause. That night, I went home alone, but I didn't sleep. Not because of Claire, but because I couldn't stop thinking about Lily. Not her father. Not the irony. Just her. The way her lips curled when she smiled. The way her dress clung to her back as she walked away. The way my revenge suddenly had a face, a name, and legs that went on forever. There's a strange intimacy in silence. The kind that settles between two people when neither of them knows where the conversation will go, but both of them want to keep talking anyway. Lily and I had been texting for a week. It started innocent enough. A thank you for the wine. A joke about the fundraiser. Then came the late-night messages. Sarcasm laced with truth. Her sending pictures of her art, mostly sketches, moody and sensual, and me replying with bits of poetry I hadn't written in years. She was sharp, funny, and relentlessly honest. It was addictive. One night she texted, Lily, ever have a moment where you just want to destroy something beautiful? Me. Every day lately. Lily. Good. You're not a coward then. It was after midnight when she called. I was sitting in my car, parked outside the church. I didn't even know why I was there. Maybe part of me wanted to see if Claire would show up again. Maybe another part hoped I wouldn't. I answered without thinking. Hey, you sound tired, she said. Long day. Thinking about her? Thinking about him. Lily was quiet for a beat. Then she asked, want to meet? There was no hesitation in my voice. Where? She chose a small, 24-hour diner just off Route 14. Neutral ground. Fluorescent lights. Cheap coffee. We sat across from each other in a corner booth while the world outside blurred in a wash of headlights and drizzle. You know, she said, swirling a spoon through her cup, you don't look like a man plotting revenge. What do I look like? Sad, she said. Controlled. Like you're holding back so much it might kill you. I didn't say anything. She leaned in, her voice softer now. I get it. I grew up watching a man lie through sermons. Everyone in this town calls him holy, but I know what he is. I've heard him yell at my mom when no one was around. I've seen him get too close to church girls when he thought I wasn't watching. And now he's fucking my wife, I said flatly. Lily didn't blink. He would. We sat in silence again, but this time it wasn't awkward. It was thick. Charged. Like every word we didn't say was begging to be touched. You ever feel like you were made for chaos? She asked suddenly. I looked at her, at the way her lips curled around the word chaos like it was a dare. Lately, I replied, I feel like it's the only language I still speak. She smirked. Then speak it with me. I didn't touch her. Not yet. But there was a moment, her hand brushing mine over the Formica tabletop, her breath catching in her throat, and I could feel it, the line we were about to cross. Neither of us flinched. You think your dad suspects anything? I asked. Please, she said, scoffing. He doesn't even know me. That struck something in me. A hollow truth I recognized. Because Claire didn't know me either, not anymore. Maybe she never had. But Lily looked at me like she could read the chaos behind my calm. And maybe that was what scared me most. We sat there until 2 a.m., talking about everything and nothing. Her exes. My past. Art. God. The kind of things you only talk about when you know your whole world is already burning and you've got nothing left to lose. As we stood to leave, she looked up at me, eyes dark and knowing. Just so we're clear, she said. I'm not looking to be your therapist. I leaned in, just enough for her to feel my breath. Good. I'm not looking to be saved. And just like that, something between us ignited. Not quite a fire. Not yet. But a spark. One that would grow into something neither of us could control. It was raining the night it happened. Not a gentle drizzle, but a torrential downpour, thick, unrelenting sheets of water that turned the roads to rivers and drowned the air in thunder. The kind of night made for secrets. For sins. For the kind of reckoning that leaves marks on more than just the skin. The chapel was supposed to be empty. That was the plan. Lily had texted me earlier that day. Lily, no choir tonight. Church is closed up. Meet me inside? Midnight. A key emoji. A flame. By the time I stepped through the side entrance, soaked to the bone, I already knew something irreversible was about to happen. And for once, I didn't care. The chapel was lit only by candles, maybe a dozen, scattered along the altar and lining the center aisle. Their flames flickered against the stained glass, casting holy shapes onto the stone floor. It was beautiful, reverent. A sanctuary meant for worship, now co-opted for something far less pure. Lily stood at the front, facing the crucifix. She wore a black hoodie over a dress that clung to her frame like wet silk. When she turned to face me, the look in her eyes wasn't innocent. It was raw, defiant, like she knew exactly what she was doing and wanted me to follow her into the fire anyway. "Took you long enough," she said, voice hushed but teasing. "Traffic was hell," I replied, stepping forward, rain still dripping from my hair. "Fitting," she smirked. "Welcome to confession." We didn't touch at first. We just stood there, inches apart, hearts pounding, the only sound the storm outside and the crackle of candlelight. She reached out slowly, fingertips grazing mine. "You sure about this?" she asked, though her body said she didn't need an answer. I looked into her eyes, saw the storm mirrored in them, and whispered, "I've never been more sure of anything." And then I kissed her. Hard. Desperate. Not like lovers, but like two people trying to rewrite history with their mouths. Her lips were soft but hungry, her breath quick and shallow. My hands slid up her back, gripping the wet fabric of her hoodie, and she moaned into my mouth, a sound that sent every nerve in my body into overdrive. She pushed me back against the altar rail, her hands gripping my jacket, tugging me closer. "This is so wrong," she gasped between kisses. "That's the point," I murmured against her throat. I kissed her neck, her collarbone, tasting the rain and perfume and something wilder underneath. Her hips rolled against mine, and I felt myself harden instantly. She noticed, smiled, pressed herself against me deliberately. "You feel that?" she whispered. "Yeah, that's revenge. We didn't fuck. Not that night. But what we did was far more dangerous. We kissed until our lips were bruised. We touched like we had permission from no one. And we did it at the foot of the altar, beneath the eyes of saints and martyrs, with every candle bearing witness. By the time we pulled apart, breathless, dizzy, she leaned her forehead against mine and whispered, "Next time, I want more." I didn't doubt her. And as I left the chapel, heart hammering in my chest, one thought burned brighter than the rest. I wasn't just falling into an affair. I was stepping into war. It started with a hotel room. Not ours. Not even when we chose together. It was a leftover key card from a canceled work trip, tucked in my wallet like an afterthought. The Wyndham off I-72, mid-tier, anonymous, and clean. The kind of place designed to forget names and faces. Lily showed up wearing a long gray coat and nothing underneath. She didn't say a word when I opened the door. Just pushed past me, dropped her coat to the carpet, and stood there, naked, unapologetic, and feral. Her body wasn't perfect. It wasn't airbrushed or filtered. But it was real, taut with tension, with curves made for gripping and skin flushed with purpose. I didn't ask why she did it. I already knew. Because in that room, under dim yellow lamps and rain tapping on the windows, we weren't Derek and Lily anymore. We were fury and need, wrath and want. And every time our bodies touched, it was like setting fire to forgiveness. The first time we had sex, it wasn't tender. It was raw. Her mouth was hot, demanding. Her hands didn't explore, they claimed. She bit my shoulder hard enough to leave a mark and whispered, "I want him to see it." I took her like I'd never taken anyone before, fast, relentless, with months of betrayal channeled into every thrust. She wrapped her legs around me, nails digging into my back, and gasped my name over and over until it wasn't just sex anymore. It was a ritual, a holy, unholy rite of two broken people finding meaning in destruction. Afterward, we lay tangled in the sweat-damp sheets, her head on my chest, our breath still uneven. "You think he'll ever know?" she asked, fingers tracing lazy circles on my ribs. "Eventually," I said. She smiled. "Good. He needs to bleed." We did it again. And again. Her hunger was endless, each encounter more ferocious than the last. In that room, she let herself go completely, no filters, no shame. She told me things she never told anyone. Fantasies. Nightmares. The moment she realized she hated her father. The day she realized she was starting to care about me. And that scared the hell out of both of us. "I'm not your project," I told her one night, half joking. She looked at me, lips swollen, hair tangled around her face. "You're not my project, Derek. You're my chaos." There was a moment, brief, but real, where I wanted to believe we were more than just vengeance wrapped in bedsheets. When I watched her walk naked to the window and light a cigarette with her back arched and the city glowing behind her, I wanted to pull her close and say, stay. But I didn't, because we weren't built for comfort. We were built for wreckage. That night, she turned to me and said, "You ever think about how this ends?" I didn't answer, because I knew. It ends with fire, with ruin, with the sound of stained glass shattering beneath our feet. But until then, we sin. And we sin beautifully. It happened faster than I expected, and yet, not a second too soon. It was late afternoon. Quiet. The kind of silence that hangs heavy, like the pause before a confession. Lily had texted. "Lily, rectory's empty. Come now." A wink. A cross. A dare. I parked behind the chapel, engine still warm, blood even warmer. We'd done reckless things before, but this was sacred ground. It felt wrong, which only made it more perfect. She opened the side door for me, barefoot, wearing an oversized church hoodie and nothing underneath. Her hair was messy, eyes alight with something wicked. "Bless me, Father," she teased, pulling me into the dark hallway. "For I'm about to sin. Again." We made it to the rectory before clothes started coming off. Her hoodie hit the floor. My belt clinked against tile. We stumbled into the room where her father used to prepare for Mass, where he kept old vestments and communion wine. Now, it reeked of heat, sweat, and sin. Lily straddled me in the wooden chair by the bookshelf, moaning into my mouth, hips grinding down like she was chasing absolution. Her nails dragged across my chest, lips pressing into my ear. "You want him to know, don't you?" she whispered. "Yes. You want him to see what he created." I grabbed her hips and pulled her against me hard. "I want him to feel what he took from me." We didn't hear the door. Not at first. But the silence broke like glass under boots. I froze. Lily's body stiffened against mine. We both turned slow, dread pooling in our guts. Father Marcus stood in the doorway. He wasn't wearing robes this time. No white collar. Just a simple black shirt, sleeves rolled up to his elbows. But his face, it was white. Ashen. As if someone had exorcised the breath right out of him. His mouth moved. No words came. Lily didn't scramble. Didn't cover herself. She climbed off me slowly, deliberately, like she wanted him to see every inch of what his hypocrisy had led her to. "Hi, Daddy," she said. His gaze moved from her to me. And that's when I stood up. Naked, unashamed, eyes locked with the man who had taken my wife, my life, and now watched me take his daughter. "You took mine," I said calmly. "I took yours." The silence that followed wasn't quiet. It was seismic. He opened his mouth again. This time sound came, low and guttural. "You sick bastard." "No," I replied, stepping toward him. "You're the sickness. You wear that collar like it absolves you. But we both know it doesn't. You preach about sin while you fuck married women behind the altar." Lily lit a cigarette. "In the rectory. Right there in front of him. Guess you're not the only one who gets to be worshipped in here anymore." He looked at her then. Truly looked. Not like a father. Not like a priest. Like a man staring down the shattering of his entire legacy. You don't understand what you've done," he said hoarsely. "No," I said. "I understand perfectly. This is balance. This is consequence." He stormed out. Didn't shout. Didn't swing. Just walked, like a man carrying the weight of his own hypocrisy down every step of that stone corridor. Lily turned to me. "That was insane," she whispered, eyes wide, wild, almost shaking. "But it was right," I said. She nodded. Yeah, it was." We stood in the silence of that desecrated room, our bodies still flushed, our war complete for now. And for the first time, I felt clean. The news spread faster than fire on dry leaves. By the following Sunday, St. Gabriel's was packed, not with believers, but spectators. The pews were filled with tight-lipped matrons, whispering fathers, and kids too young to understand the scandal unfolding around them. The pulpit stood empty. Father Marcus was on leave, they said. Health issues. Right. Claire didn't go that morning. Of course she didn't. She stayed in bed, claiming she had a headache. The same bed where she used to kiss me goodnight and pretend she hadn't just whispered someone else's name in prayer. Now she barely looked at me. Couldn't. Maybe because she'd heard the whispers too. Maybe because they all knew what I'd done. What I'd taken. Lily wasn't in church either. Not that she would be. But she called that afternoon. Her voice was tense. Quiet. Edgy. "I'm at the lake," she said. "Can you come?" I found her on the old dock, legs dangling over the edge, a cigarette burning low between her fingers. Her hoodie was too big. Her eyes were rimmed in smudged mascara. She didn't look like the woman who rode me in a holy room just days earlier. She looked like a girl again, angry, bruised, and scared. "He's losing everything," she said without turning to me. "The diocese put him on administrative leave. There's a board meeting this week. He might get defrocked." And she turned then. And now I don't know what any of this meant. I sat beside her, let the silence settle like ash. "You were using me," she said softly. "At first, weren't you?" I didn't lie. "Yes." She nodded. "And now?" That question sat between us like a blade, because somewhere between revenge and ritual, something had changed. It wasn't just sex anymore, not just vendetta. She'd become a mirror, a match, a wound I didn't want to stop bleeding. "I don't know," I said. "But it's not nothing." "That's the worst answer," she muttered. "But it's the truth." She pulled her knees up to her chest. "You know he cried? Last night. First time I've ever seen him cry. Said he failed God. That I was the devil sent to destroy him." I laughed bitterly. "Funny. That's how I felt about him. I thought it would feel better," she whispered, "seeing him broken." "Me too." She looked at me then, really looked. "So what now? Do we just stop?" I wanted to say no, that we could keep going, that we could leave this town behind and write some reckless story of redemption together. But that wasn't the truth either. "Do you want to stop?" I asked. She hesitated. "I don't know. I'm tired of being a weapon." I didn't touch her. I just nodded. "Me too." She stood up, wiped her face, flicked the last of her cigarette into the water. Then she said the thing that haunted me long after she walked away. "Tell me the truth, Derek. If my dad hadn't been the man Claire cheated with, would you still have wanted me?" And just like that, she was gone. I didn't answer, because deep down, I didn't know. It had been weeks since I'd seen her. The messages had stopped. The late-night calls. Even the rumors in town had gone quiet. St. Gabriel's operated under the shadow of scandal now. Half its pews empty, its sermons delivered by a fill-in priest with trembling hands and downcast eyes. Claire still went, though less often. Her radiance had dulled. The guilt clung to her like mildew. And me? I'd become a ghost in my own life. I went to work. I came home. I ate meals alone. Claire and I barely spoke. It was like we'd both agreed, without saying it, that the war was over and all that remained were the ruins. But Lily haunted me. She wasn't just a name or a memory. She was sensation. She was fire. The soft rasp of her voice in the dark. The smell of smoke on her collar. The way she'd looked at me with that impossible mix of defiance and vulnerability, like I was both her savior and her curse. I had to see her again. I found her at the art gallery downtown. A small, converted warehouse near the river where local artists hung their wounds on white walls and called it healing. I didn't know if she'd be there, but I hoped. And she was. She stood alone in front of a canvas. Black and red streaks across a white background, violent and intimate. Her arms were folded across her chest. When she heard my footsteps, she didn't turn, just said quietly, "Took you long enough." I didn't know what to say, I admitted. "Try starting with the truth." I walked beside her. The painting in front of us looked like pain personified. She tilted her head toward it. "That one's called Sanctified. Yours?" She nodded. "My confession." I swallowed hard. "Lily, I didn't mean for it to go this far." "Yes, you did," she said, finally turning to me. "We both did. I didn't expect to care about you." "That's the problem," she whispered. "You cared just enough to feel guilty, but not enough to stay." I reached for her hand. She pulled away. "I thought I could be okay with what we were," she said. "Two broken people lighting matches in the dark." But then I started hoping for something else. And that's when I knew I had to walk. "Why?" "Because I was tired of being used," she said. "Even by someone who didn't mean to." I stood there stunned. Hollow. She wasn't angry, not really. She was disappointed. And somehow, that was worse. "I want to fix this," I said. She shook her head. "You can't fix something built on destruction. You can only let it fall." A pause. "But that doesn't mean it didn't matter." My throat tightened. "Did it?" Her voice cracked, just slightly. "You were the first man who saw me. Not the priest's daughter. Not a wild girl to be tamed. You saw me. And for a little while, I believed I could be more than what they made me." I reached for her again. This time, she let me touch her hand, but only for a second. "Thank you," she said, "for showing me who I was, even if it cost us both everything." Then she walked away. No grand exit. No fireworks. Just silence. And I stood there, next to a painting called Sanctified, wondering how something so wrong could feel like the only real thing I'd touched in years. The chapel was empty. Dust floated through the air in soft spirals, caught in shafts of morning light that filtered through the stained glass windows. The altar stood silent, the pulpit bare. No sermon, no choir, just the weight of memory pressing against the silence like an invisible hand. I sat in the fourth pew, our pew. The same spot where Claire used to squeeze my hand during hymns. The same spot where I once believed vows meant forever and faith could save anything. It had been 3 months. Claire and I separated quietly. No fights, no begging, just a conversation over coffee where we both admitted we had nothing left to fight for. She kept the house. I took my books and the couch. Even the dog seemed confused by how little drama there was. The town moved on, as towns do. Father Marcus was relocated. No details shared. A few loyal congregants mourned his absence. Most whispered about the fall from grace. St. Gabriel's lost half its congregation. The other half showed up more out of habit than belief. I stopped going. Until today. I don't know why I came back. Maybe I was looking for closure. Maybe I was just looking. And then I heard footsteps. Soft. Familiar. I didn't turn at first. Just listened. Her scent hit me before her voice did. Vanilla, clove, and smoke. "You're in her spot," Lily said. I looked up. She stood at the aisle, dressed simply, jeans, a white blouse, hair pulled back in a loose knot. No makeup. No smirk. Just honesty. "You came back," I said. She sat beside me. Not touching. Just close enough to feel. "I wasn't going to," she said. "But I saw you come in. And I figured, why not lie one more time?" I smiled faintly. This place makes liars of us all. We sat in silence for a long moment. The kind that wasn't awkward. The kind that just was. "I'm not angry anymore," she said quietly. "Me neither. I hated you," she added, a small smile on her lips. "Hated you for using me. Hated myself for letting you." "I hated myself too," I said. "For all of it." She turned toward me. "But I never hated what we had." "Not really." "Me neither." A pause. "So now what?" she asked. I looked around the chapel. The cracked paint. The flickering candles someone forgot to replace. "We stopped lying," I said. "To each other. To ourselves." She nodded. "I don't want to be someone's revenge fantasy anymore. And I don't want to be someone's cautionary tale." We both laughed softly. It felt human. Not redemption. Not absolution. Just truth. She reached for my hand, and this time I didn't hesitate. I took it. Held it. No fire. No lust. Just warmth. "We were sinners," she said. "We still are." "Good," she smiled. "I'd rather be a sinner with you than sanctified and alone." Outside, the bells rang. Noon Mass would have started by now, back when this place still believed in salvation. We sat there a little longer, hand in hand, beneath the gaze of stone saints who no longer had the power to judge us. Because this wasn't about forgiveness. This was about finally telling the truth.